Welcome in for another episode of the Vitamin C's podcast, proud part of the CLNS Media Network. Today is Friday, May 12th, and what a Friday it is. First things first, Wayne, how are you feeling after a ridiculous Game 6 last night?
Can I explain my last night in 30 seconds or less?
Yes.
I'm at a gig. I didn't want to be there. The singer knew that I didn't want to be there. In fact, he, in the microphone, told the audience that I did not want to be there. And they saw I was dressed. I was decked out. I had the new fresh jersey, 2023 edition with the dark green, hunter green, and the gold standing out. I did not want to be there, and I knew why. It was Game 6, and I needed to be home. So when I needed to channel in my inner talk to the team, because I knew I was gonna have to have a conversation. I knew at some point I was gonna have to have a conversation with our guys. So I want to give a huge shout out to my mentor, my singer, Timmy Maya, for stopping the show once the Celtics started losing. He stopped the show. He says, wait a minute, I got to let Breezie, he's got to talk to his team. He's got to, we got to take a pause. We'll be back. We stopped the show for a good minute, bro. Watch that fourth quarter, and I had a quick sight with Jayson Tatum. I said, listen, son, you're too good. You're too good. I can call him son because I'm 42. I said, son, you're too good for this. You got to figure it out. And lo and behold, we won the game because of Jayson Tatum. I will say this. I'm actually feeling confident about the next game on Sunday, on Mother's Day. I'm feeling really confident. I felt like this is how the Celtics map this shit out. I'm sorry if I wasn't supposed to curse. I felt like this was a map
it's
out.
too late. Cat's out of the bag.
Bam. This is what it was, Tim. So I'm feeling good. I'm hoping you're feeling good. And I hope we have a great show for everybody out there. Welcome to Vitamin C's, baby.
I feel good. I feel stunned, flummoxed, flabbergasted. All of the words that sum up confusion. Just because I think going into Game 6, you hope that they could take it. And I think a lot of people looking at last playoff run said, well, they did the same exact thing to Milwaukee. They went into Milwaukee and took that game. But the vibe and the energy of this team going into that Game 6 felt bad.
It was bad.
It felt bad. Like they had a really terrible Game 5, didn't show up at all. Jayson Tatum had back-to-back games where he stunk it up for the early going, and it was the same thing for Game 6. You know, you sat through 3 quarters. It was bad. The first half, he was 0-10 from the field, 1 point on a single free throw. I believe it was the technical that got called on Joel Embiid, I want to say. And he made one single field goal throughout the entirety of those first 3 quarters. And then in the fourth quarter, I told you before we hopped on, I was like straight up like Joker laughing. Like that was my origin, like my villain origin story. That fourth quarter from Jayson Tatum, 4 of 8 from the field, 4 of 5 from 3. He hit the first one and I was like, don't do this to me. And then like literally with like 30 seconds later, he hit a second one to hit back-to-back 3-pointers and caused the timeout. And I was like, no, he's not going to do this. He's not going to do this. And he did. And insane fourth quarter performance. I just paced the whole team. 16 points, 4 of 4 from the line, 4 of 5 from 3, 2 rebounds, a steal, single turnover, plus 11 on that quarter. The sole reason why they won that game, but also like one of the main reasons why they weren't able to put this game to bed. The fact of the matter is that the Celtics somehow won this game. They somehow won this game. Philly had all of the momentum. They had home court. They had the whole crowd behind them. And they still lost. So if you're Philly, I agree with you. Going into Game 7 on Sunday, if I'm the Celtics, 1, I'm immensely more confident. 2, you're taking a long, hard look at Jayson Tatum and saying, hey, man, you can't have another game like this. And he knows this. He said as much in his post game, like, I don't want to go through this shit again. I never want to play like this again. That's devastating if you're Philly. You had a chance to put this away, to send yourself to the conference finals for the first time in eons at this point. They totally screwed up. And you know what Joel Embiid said in his like freaking post game was like, well, I didn't really like get the ball at all in the fourth. That's not the reason why you lost, dude. You didn't lose it in the last 4 minutes. You lost it when you didn't take advantage of Jayson Tatum having an absolute horrendous game the first 3 quarters. That's bad. And I'll give Joe, before I pass it over, I want to give Joe credit for this. Putting Robin double big. It did it, man. The defense just came back. It's the second time this season that they've held a team to under 90 points. Both times happened in this series against the 76ers.
It's common sense. We've been saying it.
Crazy.
We've been saying it. Listen, I love Derek White. I love what he brought to the team when they stopped going with the double big due to Rob Williams' injury and the fact that you wanted to keep Rob Williams fresh. Fresh. Pump it. It's the playoffs. It's where to go home. We need to start the game double big. Let Derek White come off the bench when their situation is a little different on their defensive side. They got to make their subs. I think Derek will cook better in that type of situation. I know I'm animated right now. People, turn your volume down because I couldn't figure out.
I'll let Justin post. It's fine.
Listen, I'm telling you. It's been making sense for the past 3 games. We couldn't figure them out. And yeah, a couple of the games we lost were by 1 point, 4 points, whatever, close games. But that last game, and I know we should be celebrating this victory, and we will, but it's hard to celebrate a victory when you win, when your best player he was terrible. But he finished strong. Do we go off of that? Double bigs is first and foremost. That's got to be the adjustment of the year, adjustment of the playoffs. For Joe Mazzulla, like that has to be the adjustment. And everybody that I know that probably don't even know what the hell that means was asking for double bigs. It just made sense. It was less work on Al Horford from a defensive perspective. He can focus on playing the type of defense that he's been doing. They forgot Al Horford is getting up there in age. Maybe we're the only ones that realize he got some gray hairs and some ball spots dingling in his head or whatnot. Not a shot at you, Al. It's just part of the game. It's part of the game. I got mine too, see? But my point is, it made sense to do the double big. I don't know if they're going to start the game the same way just to see if they can get their guys cooking. Jaylen Brown, Jayson Tatum, I thought had weird nights. Marcus Smart, to me, was the MVP.
I think he was the best player on the floor for the Celtics. He might have been the best player in the whole game.
For the game.
I mean, you look around, the only one that came close to was probably Embiid, but even then, like, Marcus was huge. 8 of 15, 3 of 8 from the field, 3 of 4 from the line, 7 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 steals, 3 turnovers. But 22 points, he led the team in scoring. Plus 18.
Plus 18.
The only other player that had that was Rob. And Rob was also phenomenal. When you talk about how he played, he was massive in that first quarter because you saw them do this a lot where, again, this is what he offers, is he offers that lob threat, right? It gives you a safety valve on offense, which right now with the Celtics offense still struggling, the fact that they managed to win this game, I'm still even just like 12, 24 hours after it happens, I'm still reeling from the fact that they managed to do that. And I just can't imagine how they do it again.
I think with the way you feel is very normal, and I think everybody's feeling the same way. I think the question, how did we win this game? Number one, we out-rebounded them. I never thought we can out-rebound the team in my entire life. Like, I didn't think that could happen in this particular game. They out-rebounded the 76ers. And the 76ers weren't hitting their shots either, finally, because they had a night where they just couldn't miss. And I'm saying, finally, they look normal, right? They look like their normal selves, where they're just not hitting a bunch of shots. Things that we need to address and fix. Gotta stop leaving the wide open guy. A wide open shooter taking wide open shots. Imagine if they hit those shots, though, Tim. Like, imagine if those wide open shooters on Philly hit those shots. We would be saying farewell to the Boston Celtics, because they had too many looks for open threes. I thought Malcolm Brogdon has been the most consistent player in this series. And Marcus Smart has been he's just been the guy. And whatever he's doing, don't stop. Don't change it. I don't care about him shooting threes anymore, because when he's hot, he's hot. And when he's off, he knows when to stop. now and make a play. You know, turnovers are still a big thing for me though, Tim. I felt like we still had
17.
That's ridiculous.
It was like a high for the playoffs, I think.
17 to 11, Tim.
I mean, it was just bad. And it was a lot of sloppy stuff too, right? So like I think if you do look at this game, that's the one thing you focus on. I mean, Jaylen and Malcolm and Tatum. Tatum had some really bad ones early on. It happened a couple times with Jaylen too, where both of those guys, where they would go up, they would go ready for a play, and they would scramble and panic in that moment. So I will give Philly a lot of credit for that. Like they've done a good job at trying to scramble the Jays, specifically being ready to have a second defender come in and pinch, and they're getting them to jump into the air. Jaylen's guilty of this a lot, where he'll jump into the air looking for either a shot or something, and when it's not there, he'll pass the ball out. And sometimes it's just like there's just a defender waiting there to take it. And so you got to cut back on those. Yeah. And you can't expect them to play like this again and win. So the Celtics really need to focus on that. But I will say, despite the rough offensive performance, it's everything else that they did that won the game. Big ups on the rebounding, 50 to 38. That's a big deal. Shutting down Philly's offense in terms of how they were operating. They didn't have as many turnovers, like you said, 11, but the two guys who had the most were Joel Embiid with 4 and James Harden with 5. And granted, dudes still have 9 assists, 3 steals, but like he shot 4 of 16 and he was 0 of 6 from 3. So you got to do that again. I think they did the right thing there in taking James Harden out of the equation on offense.
Yes.
Tyrese Maxey still had a pretty solid night. Not stellar shooting, but still good. And I can't really critique his shooting when you look at Tatum's. But overall, you know, like I think James Harden is the key for this offense to work. It's true though. Okay, so like it was a really inspiring game. It was shocking. Jayson Tatum shows up in the fourth quarter. It was fantastic. Tatum knows this. The team knows this. The odds of you being able to replicate that performance and winning Game 7, I would not be a betting man and take those odds.
I'm scared because
I'm scared if he does that, but I think they're gonna win. Like I think they're gonna win because I don't think Tatum's gonna start like that again. I just don't see it.
But the thing is, though, Tim, that he's been consistently trending downward. Though, can you go any more down than that?
I think that fourth quarter is gonna change everything.
I think
that fourth quarter just put a bunch of air in his tires because he had. Look, I think if you look at it that way, I think those two games going into that third game, going into that Game 6, where he had the same exact ice cold start, like 0-5, 0-6 to start in the first quarter, and then you have that fourth quarter performance. I think that's the ignition. Like change. That's the ignition. That's the change. Like that's the starting point. So if Tatum doesn't force it to start Game 7, I think that they're going to be in a better spot. And I don't think
you said force it.
You can't force it.
You said force it. I feel like that's what Tatum is doing. Hey, Tatum, if he just moves the ball. Here's the thing about Jayson Tatum. He's the best player on the court, period. I arguably with Embiid. But for the Celtics, in my opinion, best player, skill set on the court. If you just move the ball, 9 times out of 10, it'll come back to you with 6 or 7 seconds on that clock. Sometimes I feel like Tatum is trying to just get to the rim, get the easy basket, but it's between 3 defenders. I mean, Philly is closing down there really quickly. So the moment you think you got Embiid beat, you don't. He's closing out. He's blocking your shots. That ain't it, Tatum. So if you know, because Tatum is probably, I tell you what, Tatum has the highest IQ out there on the court. So instead of being young, Tatum, and forcing it, I would like to see Tatum try or run somebody down there with him so that he can kick that ball out to the side, like have somebody trailing to a corner. And guess what? They're doubling and tripling him too. So that means there's 1 to 2 guys wide open. So if Tatum can get that clear lane to get the ball to the outside, I'll let Marcus Smart shoot that shot every single time. I don't care if he missed. Let him shoot that shot. And here's the issue. It's not just Tatum. They need more from Al Horford. For some reason, those are your 2. You're missing points from those 2 threes on top of that. And that's why the Celtics are struggling. And that's the issue. So we got to figure out how to keep giving them great looks and I'm hoping in the beginning of this game, like Al Horford hits his first three and Tatum hits his first three,
Yeah.
and then they don't stop shooting. Because once they get on, there's no way you beat the Celtics. When the Celtics are on, you can't beat them because it's forcing the other team to match that.
Yeah. And I will say this, I think their guard rotation is what really stepped up. You look at Smart, you look at White, you look at Brogdon. You know, for all of the stuff we've kind of thrown at Derek White in terms of not performing up to what he was doing during the regular season or even during that Hawks series, he did come through in this game. I think he was a massive help off the bench. Granted, like not a stellar plus minus, but I think he also, again, you're throwing both him and Brogdon at James Harden, and that's a tough matchup. So, like, I think there's things here and there that you want more from Derek White on. But, 20 minutes, 3 of 6 from the field, 3 of 5 from 3. So, like, you can't scoff at that. And Malcolm Brogdon, big plus on offense, 6 of 11, 4 of 6 from 3. He's not going to ever be like a true point guard off the bench, but he's a guy who's going to go get you buckets, and he's not afraid to take those shots. And he had a couple big swing 3-pointers. He had a couple late in game that, like, you hit one and you took like a sigh of relief. Like, he hit like one big 3, and I was like, oh, like, thank Christ that went in. Like, thank God. You needed like one of those. He has a few of those every single game where like you feel like Philly's about to pull away, or it happened in the Atlanta series too, where you felt the opponent pulling away, and he manages to hit a 3 to keep it close, or to take a 1 or 2 point lead. The one thing I do want to say too is, and I don't know if you saw Marcus Smart's comment, because it ties into Joe's situation to play Rob instead, making that decision.
Do share.
Well, he kind of sort of threw a little shade Joe's way, but also was praising him. It was like a backhanded compliment.
Good.
Where he said Joe's learning, and said Joe's been criticized, and rightfully so. So I think that's an interesting little tidbit. I think Smart was, as he phrased it, ecstatic that Rob was getting the start. So in my mind, I think that it's good that there's a little bit of heat being thrown each way, because I think in order for Joe to learn, he needs to go through this hardship. I think that there's an element of just learning. And I think as much as I think they talked about it earlier in the season, I remember talking about, we want Rob to start. Like, we want Rob to be a starter. Our team is better. We feel like we're at our best when we have Rob in the starting lineup.
It's time.
I think it's a matchup based, right? Like, I feel like that you have to make the best decision for your team in the given moment based on what you're going against. And we just knew after a few games in a row now that the lineup with Derek White starting out there, it wasn't working. You needed to throw Rob in the mix. So it's just interesting to me to look at that and look at the situation in terms of how Marcus Smart was talking about Joe in speaking in postgame. Like, there's an element of fire to this team. Like, they kind of took the keys out of Joe's hand there for a second and said, like, we're going to go win this stuff.
Here's why I'm not against that. I mean, you're talking to the most tenured player on the Celtics, right? You're talking to me, a captain, a team leader, a guy that they look up to. You still got a bunch of young guys up there, even though Tatum might be the best player and Jaylen Brown might be the best finisher or whatever, however you want to 1A, 1B, whatever. We got all this great talent. Rob is the best rim threat we got. Like, we have to, I'm glad that the leader, the captain of this team spoke up and said something that could light a little bit of fire under Joe. And if Joe wants to take that out on him, then that means Joe's not about this team. See, this team they need to get back to what they are. They've been here. These players, Tatum, Horford, Rob, Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, even Derek White, Malcolm Brogdon is new, but those guys have been here. They were here last year, same situation, different team. They've dealt with adversity. Joe hasn't. And so I don't know about the learning and the playoffs thing, but you have to be able to quickly adjust if you're going to be a great NBA coach. And for Joe Mazzulla, I know he's a baby at coaching. He's even a baby as a man and a coach in the league. But at the end of the day, listen to your players, man. Like, these guys have been here. Why not trust them? Why not? They know Philly better than anybody. Them players that I mentioned, they know this team. They know how to get in Embiid's head. I thought it should have been a double technical on Embiid. He literally was cursing out the ref when he got that tech. Hit him with another one. Why not? So I feel like Marcus Smart, what he said, even though it might cause a little friction, I thought it was spot on because you've been saying it, I've been saying it, everybody that I know has been saying it, all the other analysts has been saying it, people that don't even watch basketball knows it. Like he's got to just adjust. He's got to figure out a way to adjust. Going double bigs, that's step one. Now let's do it again and then find a way to adjust. There's got to be a player. I'm calling it right now. Grant Williams will get minutes in Game 7, and he will be an intricate part to why the Celtics move forward.
Yeah, I think it'll be crucial. I think there's a chance for it just because I want to see how Doc adjusts. And I agree with that. I think a lot of people were saying Doc Rivers, again, this is a Doc Rivers legacy game.
Good point.
In a big way because he was talking about it in postgame. This is how many times has he blown a 3-2 series lead? You had it in Philly. You had a chance to put away the Celtics. You had Jayson Tatum, like the stars aligned. Jayson Tatum had another stinker for 3 quarters, and you failed to capitalize on that. That is huge. That's big on the team. I think that's big for the Celtics locker room. That's a massive blow to the 76ers. But for Doc now, how do you handle that mentally? How do you go about adjustments? Like, I want to see if they're going to go out with PJ Tucker. Is PJ Tucker going to actually start the game for them again? Or are they going to throw more wrinkles into their starting lineup? They're going to change their lineup in order to match this double big lineup for the Celtics. And I think the Celtics are going to still run with the double big. Why not? It won you this game. Your defense won you this game, especially because you took James Harden out of the equation. You neutralized their pick and roll a little bit. And it wasn't pretty, but this is how this team was kind of built before to win games, was to win ugly games with their defense. This is what Ime Udoka preached. For all of the drama and everything that happened with Ime and all of the terrible stuff that went into that and all of the turmoil that led into this season, there are a lot of principles that Ime Udoka had that were good that still need to be instilled, and Joe has to be the one to say it, where when the offense isn't there, we need to hang our hat on defense because that's what won them this game. It won them this game, and I think looking at it now, like you're going to have to be ready for whatever counterpunch comes your way on Sunday, but it's going to, you can't hesitate to mix things up. And I think that's why adding Robin was big. I think that is a signal of Joe learning. I agree with Marcus on that. And it was interesting to see him say that and kind of throw a little shade his way. And then also see, Jayson Tatum was saying, oh, like I love and respect Joe, and like, I love the relationship that we have, and sometimes
sure,
he's learning, he's young, and like we both are learning, so we always have times where like I'll pull him aside and be like, hey, like I got you, man, like I'm in your corner, like I got you. So it's good to hear that, especially after all of the love that the players have shown Ime Udoka after leaving. Like Ime was probably like my favorite coach, was like a line that Jayson Tatum said. So like to hear this is good because I don't think that Joe is a problem here with everything going on. I think it's just you're looking at a rookie head coach who lost basically his entire staff, right? Because you had Will Hardy go to the Utah Jazz as their head coach. You had Joe Mazzulla go from being an assistant to a head coach. You had Ime Udoka, all of that knowledge going out the window. Then you lost Damon Stoudemire during the season. And we talked about this at this point now, it's probably been a couple months, but how big of a gap that would be with Damon Stoudemire not being in the mix anymore. It's moments like these where you really miss having those assistant coaches on the sidelines guiding them. So I know that there was rumors that Steven Silas, who just got let go from Houston, obviously Ime Udoka took his place, but now Steven Silas is probably going to end up on the Celtics staff. I don't think that's official yet, but something that could happen in the offseason. But that's what they're going to need to do, I think, moving forward, beefing out that assistant coaching staff around him. But in the meantime, he's got to turn to his players. And I think this was a great example of it in this game. Turn to your players, trust your guys, and look for their feedback and input, because I have to imagine there was some kind of conversation, right? Like, Joe doesn't come to that conclusion about starting Rob without talking to the guys and seeing what they think is best.
Yeah, I think when your backs are against the wall, I think you kind of, all right, guys, let's talk, man. This is it, man. It's win or go home. What are you guys seeing out there? What's something that we can do? How can we adjust? And I think, the energy, you guys forget when Robert Williams starts, the game has a different energy vibe. Start that motherfucker. Start him at home. If you thought the energy vibe was crazy in Philly, Wait till he's back in Boston and they
Vibe
see him
Lord.
in that starting lineup.
Vibe
You get what I'm
Lord.
saying?
Yeah.
Like it just makes sense. And I'm gonna be honest, Doc is not really great at making adjustments.
Nope.
He may throw a wrinkle in there, but here's what the Celtics have to do, must do. Now, I don't expect Tobias Harris to end with 2 points again. But if you start with this double big lineup, it could change and mess up his trajectory. So there's a possibility that he still becomes a non-factor. So I expect him to score more. I'm going to expect James Harden to give a little bit more output. But again, we got to match it. We got to make sure our guys are doing what they have. You can keep DeAnthony Melton from not like being a ripple in their offense. If you can keep him from scoring, Shake Milton may come in. He's been using tons of players. He's doubled his roster on his rotation than what we use. Like it's like double. So he's been using tons of players trying to figure things out, try to throw the Celtics off a little bit. You may get Daniel House. You might get, Nang's gonna come in and try to hit a 3 or 2. So these guys are gonna come in. Let them start freaking Paul Reed and Joel Embiid. We can just shoot. We can shoot them bigs out of there. I like it. One of them dudes got to defend Al Horford. Because Al Horford ain't going to be posted down the paint. So I tell you what, you go ahead and not defend Al Horford. That's when his shot will start dropping, and then it'll be a totally different game. I just got a great vibe. Got this good feeling. It's good juju. It's Mother's Day. It's going to be great.
Yeah, and I'm with that, man. I think it was, you talk about energy, right? And I think this is a good example of it. I'm sure you saw it. I have got a piece that I'm going to have dropping probably, if not tonight, tomorrow for Celtics blog from Jaylen Brown. And this is what he had to say. The energy in the Garden has been okay at best. Game 7, if you're there or if you're not there, I need you to be up. I need you to come with the energy because we're going to need every bit of it. That's Jaylen Brown calling out Celtics fans.
He called out the fans. Can I add what he's also said, though? He said, since the fans call us out.
I like that energy, though.
Yes.
I like that energy on both counts, right? Because, it's twofold. Because, one, the fans sort of, based on some of these performances,
they be booing.
They have no reason to not boo you, man. you guys stunk it up in game 1. You stunk it up in game 5 at home in front of them. So you lost 2 crucial games that if you had won, the series is over. So I get it. I get that. Yeah, begrudgingly, yeah, all right, that's a point. But also, yeah, their energy has been terrible. And I imagine that if you're a Celtics player and you have to deal with all that crap, you're probably not too stoked to have to go back home. And it's all right, guys, look, it's a game 7. We're in a winner-take-all situation. Just don't be dicks. Cheer us on. Make it hell for Philly.
They do. I expect the Garden to be full capacity and rocking. But the players have to do their part. You want the fans to hold you down and to make it really loud and affect and throw Philly off or whatever we do for the opposing team. Mm-hmm. You gotta not turn over the ball 55 times. You gotta make the right pass. I know there was one turnover Brown had where he slipped, and I was just like, shouldn't they have
That was
stopped?
bad. And I'm pissed at the refs for that because they didn't stop the clock. They didn't stop to go wipe stuff down. He literally was like, I slipped on this. You look at the replay. His shoe we're lucky he didn't get hurt. I'm lucky. Right. I was relieved that it was something that he didn't leave the game for and wasn't. Whew.
To be somewhat fair, James Harden did the same thing, and they didn't call it either.
They should, though, because I feel like that's a player. It's one thing if it's a breakaway, right? But the Celtics still had possession on that one, right?
No, I agree.
They should have been hey, let's just call a stoppage and just wipe this up, just for safety's sake, because the last thing you need to do is people getting hurt.
I agree 1,000%, and just give them the ball back. They can have the ball, but at the end of the day, I think the refs messed up, and so when it happened to Harden,
you got to be consistent.
They had to stay consistent.
Yeah,
the one time that they're consistent, it was on those slip on the floor plays. But look, man, overall, the Celtics found a way to pull through, win Game 6, to get it back home. Fans, when you're watching this game, whether you're on TV, if you're going to be at the Garden, bring your great energy. let's find a way to send that blue and red team back home, backpacking, so they can get on the boat to Cabo or wherever they got to go. Because the Celtics are clearly built for this. That's the one thing I would say. They're built for it, and there's no way that Jayson Tatum can be worse than what he was. And so that's why there's that ceiling, right? There's no way he could be worse than that, even though he finished with 16. There's no way.
Yeah, he closed out with 16 points in that fourth. I just don't see him doing that again. And I agree. I don't see him putting up another night like that in terms of efficiency. So, but bring it the energy. I think that's what our general message is to everybody, including Jayson Tatum. And I expect him to come ready. I think he'll be ready for Game 7. And again, being someone who's gone to a Game 7 in Boston, when the Garden is popping, it's popping. So I'm expecting the crowd to be rocking.
I mean, big
Jungle's
stars
gonna be rocking, man.
There's gonna be stars in the building. Like, it's gonna be lit, and it's exactly.
Donovan Mitchell was there too. Game 6, he was there. Yeah, he was talking with Tatum after the game. Yeah, I'm not gonna go into analyzing that. It is what it is. I'm just gonna say that it happened and that it was there, and well, whatever. I don't hate it. I know that they're boys. I know that him and Jalen are close too. So
the best thing before we get up out of here that I saw was the hug of Brown and Tatum at the end of this game.
Happy.
That
so
shit
pure.
made me feel like I was about to watch an episode of Care Bears. Like, literally, it was the perfect hug. It was like, yes. And then it wasn't just a hug. It was the smiles.
Big smiles. That's the smile of a man who's going to sign a big old
massive
contract.
$295 million contract. And he'll be with the Celtics. So, great show.
Amen to that. We're going to wrap it up for today. And we'll get back to you regardless, for better or worse, after everything on Sunday. So this has been Vitamin C's. Keep the energy up. Have a good Mother's Day and peace.
Happy Mother's Day.
Sign up at FanDuel.com/Boston and make every moment more on America's #1 sportsbook.